Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Jamie Noodles, McLennan and Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. Little Valentine's bit in about a half an hour. We'll explain it. We'll get into it. Very complex stuff, but I think we're up for it. I think we can bring it home. And it'll be very romantic. A lot of romantic takes.
Oh, yeah. Well, those guys in the booth, fellas, I mean, Noodles, I don't know if you've seen this setup they got in the booth. They got this humidifier diffuser back there.
It was trending online yesterday. I saw it. I don't know who did it. Sounds like it was Doogie. JP did not seem comfortable because he's dealing with instruments and electronics, and there's like dripping water everywhere. So I'm concerned for their health back there. It might actually be a health, or what is that, a violation.
Safety violation.
Health and safety violation. You never know.
Yeah, we don't want to write Doogie up. Like, I'll fall on the sword for Doogie. He's our guy. But bringing in the humidifier and just letting it run is just a wild, wild decision in an office space. Right,
Yeah.
Like office politics and, the way people kind of operate, it's get a little bit greasy at times. But
especially it's not your office. Like it's a shared space. So he's got to, you can't just set up what you want.
Well,
like
Doogie doesn't take orders from anyone, man. He does whatever he feels he has to do.
JP, we did ask JP. JP's fine with it. It's got like a yoga studio kind of, almost like a massage parlor feel back there, and I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, we don't need to go further down that road. Yeah, I hope that's not the vibe back there. We need guys sharp and ready to go.
Yeah,
Come on,
sitting there in a towel.
Yeah, everyone's just like so relaxed.
I'm just saying, it's very zen, man.
It is very zen.
And Doogie was talking about adding like infusions of natural oils into the diffuser at some point.
Wow. Yeah, so there's like a kind of smelling element to this, right? Like that could really change the whole complexion of the vibe back there. Hey, it's Doogie's world. We're just living in it, so it's all good. And Doogie's put together a bit later this hour. Again, Owen Tippett will join us. And Philly's in town. John Tortorella's in town tomorrow. Every time Tortorella comes up, he makes sure the Canadian media knows that he doesn't like them.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He doesn't like the Canadian media. Didn't like Vancouver's media.
Didn't like working at TSN.
Didn't like working anywhere. He worked at ESPN, but yet, he's done an unbelievable job. Like
he has.
We keep talking about Coach of the Year. I think Rick Tocchet at this point is a favorite, should be a heavy favorite. But if Philly stays in it, like John Tortorella could win it, and it would not be surprising at all. Like, not surprising at all, because if you match talent for talent, Vancouver's got a lot of it. Philly, they don't have, like, superstars that are sticking out, but they got guys like Owen Tippett who are really good players, and show up and play every single night, and Tippett's going to join us here in a moment. He's a local guy, played in the O, played in Mississauga.
Got a big extension.
Just got a big extension, right? They just locked him up, and I think that's pretty tidy work considering how well he's played since he got to Philly.
Well, he's a hell of a player.
Yeah,
if you look at, I thought I saw a stat. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but he's a really fast skater, and he's had they track fastest bursts in the National Hockey League. I think he's had a couple of them this season, where fastest guy with the puck or whatever trying to score. I watched a game live the other day. He drove the net hard. I thought he was going to put the goaltender and the whole net through the boards. It was in the last second of overtime, and he drove hard to the net. They ended up going to shootout. But he's a great skater and a big, strong guy. He's a
powerful guy.
He's a perfect Philadelphia Flyer, the prototypical Philadelphia Flyer.
That's right. And again, that was, I believe, the Claude Giroux deal that just keeps paying dividends.
Yeah.
Right. Where now, if you're Florida, you went for it. You're not complaining. You made it to a Cup final last year, and you're a great team still. So it's all good. But a couple of years ago, they went all in on Ben Sherrod, on Giroux.
Yeah.
And obviously it was a disappointing outcome. I think they got swept in the second round by Tampa, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And then everything changed. Huberdeau was gone. Again, a couple of free agents left. Obviously, Giroux ends up signing in Ottawa. But that's the scary thing. You look at Florida, imagine Tippett was still down there.
Really?
How good that team would be right now if Owen Tippett was playing in the top six. But I'm sure he's happy. He should be happy in Philly because they're looking for that new wave, a new era. Again, with Giroux moving on, it's like Konecny's obviously playing a big role in that. Tippett's going to play a big role in that. They got some young defense, And Tortorella, Briere, Keith Jones. Philly's a great hockey market.
And your boy Morgan Frost.
And Morgan Frost has been great.
Yeah, he's been great. Like, they've got some really good young players mixed with some veterans that have, really kind of helped toe the line there. They've been a really, I would say, probably one of the biggest surprises in the National Hockey League. They're third in the Metropolitan.
Absolutely.
They've been that good.
And
Owen Tippett's been a big part of that.
In the middle of February, right? It's not a surprise anymore. Like, it's a surprise the first 2 weeks, month and a half. Now it's like, all right, it's just a reality. These guys are winning games, and they're legit. And Philly's in town tomorrow. And, again, he's from the area. Here is Owen Tippett of the Philadelphia Flyers joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. How you doing, Owen?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing very well. How many tickets are you on the hook for tomorrow night?
I'm still trying to figure it out, but it's looking like 10 or so it's not too bad, but still quite a few.
Is that like every time you're here? Like, because you're going to be up here a couple times a year. You've been in the league now for a while. Is it every single time you're here, people are going to be wanting to come down to see you, or has it changed a little bit as you've grown as a player and you've been in the league for a while?
I think it's changed a little bit, but every time I come in, there's always a decent amount of family and friends that come out. So, it's always fun coming back and being able to see them and play in front of them.
Well, there's got to be a line, though. I always had a line when I would go back to Edmonton, or, as a guy I hadn't seen since grade 9 or something. All of a sudden, he's got my number or leaving a message in the hotel. Like, you got to flush that guy. Like, there's got to be a line where you're like, okay, I haven't talked to you in 5 years. You're out.
Yeah, no, there's always a line, I feel like, but usually they try and work their way onto the guest list anyways. So.
Nothing wrong with that. They'll find you. With Owen Tippett. And we were just talking about your team, and coming into the season, admittedly, we weren't talking about you guys as a playoff lock by any means, and you guys have been in a playoff spot all year. You had a dip a couple weeks ago, and now what have you done? You run off 4 straight wins, and you're right back into a solidified position in the division. You guys have been proving doubters wrong all year. Like, what did you know about your team in camp that maybe the rest of the world didn't know?
Yeah, I think, coming into camp, you never really know at the start of the season. And, it's always fun to get together with the guys and kind of do that team building and get to know each other. And I think right away we knew we were going to have a good group. And I think, you guys just said it, there's a lot of doubters out there. And, obviously that gives us a little bit of a spark. But there's just a lot of belief in our group, and it's been fun so far to play alongside those guys this year.
So you've been, being sort of touted by your coach, John Tortorella, as a prototypical power forward. And he was talking about how you sort of grown into that role. How do you sort of see yourself and how you've evolved into a guy that the Flyers have been comfortable enough to give the big 8-year, $49 million extension?
Yeah, he's been great with me. Ever since he came over last year, he's kind of put it in my ear that's the style of game he's wanted me to play. And, anytime I kind of veer off that, he gets me right back on track. So he does a good job with keeping me in being a power forward. And I personally think that ever since I've started that, my game's kind of gone to a next level.
No one gets talked more about in terms of a coach in this league than John Tortorella. Like, everyone's got a take on John, and he's been in the media forever. He's been in the game forever. He's won cups. You get to see him behind the scenes. What can you tell us about playing for John Tortorella that maybe the general public, wouldn't know or might be surprised about?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is he cares for his players. No matter who it is, if you're playing for him, he's going to care for you, and he's going to do whatever he can to get the best out of you each and every night. And I think that's what he's done with us this year. It's guys are ready to play for him each and every game, and guys want to play for him, and all pull in that same direction. So it's been a lot of fun to have him behind the bench.
What do you make of a guy like Travis Konecny? From the outside, obviously, he's a very skilled guy. You see clips of him trying to get underneath the skin of opponents because he's chirpy on the ice. But he's a guy who can back it up. We had a Gordie Howe hat trick in 4 minutes, I think, in the first period the other day. So, he's a guy who's not shy to maybe chirp guys, but also not shy to drop the gloves and kind of back it up. What do you make of his whole game, and does he kind of pace your group? Because he's kind of a tweener between a grizzled vet and still a young, really, really quality player.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. He's got a lot of skill and a lot of grit. Obviously, he can play the game and score goals and score big goals for us. But it's like you said too. He always backs it up with him chirping and getting under guys' skin. So he's a fun player to play with, and he's an awesome guy to be around.
Hey, Owen, I heard the story. I guess it was last month. You were scoring a bunch of goals, and you'd broken all your sticks, so you borrowed some from Konecny. How did that all go down? Are you still using the Konecny curve, or are you back to your own?
I'm back to my own now, but yeah, that was funny. It was one of those things where I was switching over patterns, and when I broke all the samples, he was kind of the next closest to it, I guess you could say, and he had a couple leftovers, and I was able to use his until mine came in. But that picked up a lot of steam from the media. But him and I were always joking that it wasn't that big of a deal, and it was kind of similar sticks, so it was an easy decision to just use his.
With Owen Tippett of the Philadelphia Flyers. Flyers Leafs tomorrow night down at Scotiabank, and we referenced that big contract you just signed, 8 years, $49 million. That's a lot of commitment from the team, a lot of money coming your way. How has that changed your life, if at all?
Yeah, I think it's still pretty fresh, and I think the biggest thing is just kind of knowing and having that security of being in Philadelphia and kind of prepare to start a life there, I guess. Obviously coming off a 2-year deal and really not knowing what the future can hold. It's been pretty special to kind of sit back and just realize that I can, a little set up shop, I guess you could say, but it's still pretty fresh and, not a lot's changed.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, obviously you were a high pick. You're a first-round pick down in Florida. You're a part of a really massive trade with Claude Giroux. We were talking about it prior to having you on. You're still a young guy, but with that, being traded, now playing in a big hockey market, getting the contract signed, do you feel like you've experienced a lot? Like, do you feel like a veteran on that team?
Yeah, I feel, going through that kind of early in my career, allowed me to see kind of the whole business side of it. And ever since I came over, I kind of used that as a fresh start and a new opportunity, and just wanted to do it and make the best of it I could. So, looking back on it, it seems like it just happened, yesterday. But, it's been a lot of fun, and I love being a Flyer, and I love the city of Philadelphia. So it's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to keep it going.
Talking about the city of Philadelphia, you're well aware, being a Canadian kid growing up around here, the passion of the Leaf Nation. Talk about the passion of Flyers fans and basically that city being, a sports city. I played in both New York teams. I know how passionate and how loud the fan bases can be. Is it, rival that type of situation? Because we all know that, Flyers fans can get, pretty loud on a positive and a negative if the team isn't going so well.
Yeah, it's a super passionate fan base, not only for us, but for all the other teams in Philadelphia. And funny enough, I actually played my first game in Philly with Florida, and everyone that came down was told not to wear anything of the opposing team. So, they're a passionate fan base, and it's like you said, when we're winning, it's super fun, and also we're going to hear it when we lose. So, it's awesome to play in a market like that, and it's easy to feed off the crowd.
So do you send the same message tomorrow, or is it Tippett Flyer jerseys all over the place at Scotiabank?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what some people are going to wear, but
okay.
I think it's not as a gritty fan base here in Toronto as it is in Philly. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like Tippett jerseys, somebody's not going to give them a headlock tomorrow night and walk them out of the building. That might happen in Philly, though.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a kid giving someone the finger because they're wearing the opposition's team jersey tomorrow night. Listen, congrats on what's obviously been a great season. You guys are really rolling. It's going to be fun to see you play tomorrow and throughout the rest of the season. Congrats on the new deal as well, and thanks for doing this. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
You got it. Owen Tippett of the Philadelphia Flyers, who again he's got 19 goals on the season. He had 27 last year. He can motor. He's got size. He's a big guy, tough guy to push off the puck, and really a good guy. And that's pretty cool. It's 10-pack tomorrow. Still trying to figure out how that's all going to work out.
I love that you said like kid giving the finger. I swear to God, like I remember playing in Philly one time, and as you warm up, there's a guy with like a crazy wig on, like multicolored wig at the opposing team's blue line. And he sits there and he chirps at you, but there was a kid beside him giving you the finger. You're like, it is so weird. You're looking at like that guy's 10, maybe.
Yeah.
And he's handing the bird out. Like, is that his dad? Like, where's his dad? Like, where's the parents? Like it's such a weird thing. But that building, passionate and
for sure.
Yeah.
That city. Ooh. There was a video. I don't think we can play it, but it was the same kind of thing. I want to say it was a Bills fan. It was the NFL, and it was a big rivalry game, and there was a kid. It looked like he was 8 or 9 years old with his dad, and let's say he was a Bills fan, and the other guy was walking up, and he was a Jets fan or something, and he gave him pretended like he wanted to give him a high five, and then gave him the finger and started walking away. And it's on video. It's great, and it's like that kid's 8 years old, and his dad's like, "Hey, great job, great job, Billy. I taught you well. Like we don't ever shake hands with Jets fans. If anything, we give them the finger."
I feel like that's a New England fan for some reason. That's like
it could have been. It was something like Patriots. It was somewhere on the East Coast. Like it was something. It was like New England, New York, Philly.
Yeah.
Buffalo. It was something gritty for sure.
Hey, man, no, there's no place meaner than Philly, man. Like when you hear the hecklers in that arena, like that is a mean place, man. They are, and they're dialed in. They know exactly what they're doing. It's a bit like Duke in college basketball, where all the kids they research the opponent and take personal shots at them with their heckles like that. The Philly fans are a bit like that. Like they go right for the jugular.
Yeah, they don't mess around. And now it's the reputation. So I think at times they feel like they have an obligation to play that part.
Yeah.
I'm sure most of it is genuine, but it's like, all right, if Santa's there, you got to boo him because they booed him at one point, and it gets to a point where it's just completely unnecessary.
Where was it last year? I guess, was it Vegas that people weren't booing Bettman and people were rattled online? Like, was it, I can't remember. Bettman came out and
you're
wasn't
right.
getting booed.
He did get kind of it, which is in Vegas is where he should get a cheer. Look at what he's done for that team in that city.
But I think they did cheer him. Yeah, I think they cheered him, and people are like, "You're not supposed to do that."
Yeah, you can't do that. You cannot do that. It's not allowed. And Gary's an example of that he plays the part now. He's like, I know I'm getting booed, so I'm going to go up there and just needle away and smile at people and say you're going to want to hear this, and
that's right.
That's what you're going to get. All right, Darren Dreger just after 6. Keegan Matheson from Dunedin at 6:30. Pitchers and catchers reporting today. I haven't seen everyone's waiting on Manoah, right? Like everyone wants to see where's Manoah at, and we'll get you an update on that with Keegan Matheson again in just over an hour. Dave Feschuk of the Star in here. Jamie Noodles McLennan. I'm Bryan Hayes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, I'm not sure this music's necessary, but we're going to set a tone here, right? We've got a Valentine's Day bit. Doogie is feeling very romantic. Takes will be flying around. Tiger Woods is down there speaking with the media right now, and I guess he said his surgically repaired ankle is pain-free. He's all good.
Wow.
It's all good, which is big. And he had the Pro-Am at Riviera today, and he's playing with Josh Allen. And I guess he just said that Allen is so addicted to golf. He just wants to golf. And I think it's a long off season. I know he loves golf. We've had Allen on before. We asked him about playing golf, and I think he downplays it when he's in Buffalo, I'm sure. And he's focused. It's the off season. It's early. But I get the impression that this guy, if he can tee it every single day, he will tee it every single day. And that is the nature of a golf addiction. I will say that.
Oh, yeah.
And the idea of playing a Pro-Am with Tiger at Riviera, that would be high on, I think, anybody's list.
Oh.
That'd be incredible.
Can you imagine? That would just be
amazing.
That'd be incredible. And
that's dream come true stuff.
Yeah. We've seen it. I mean, we've seen people do it, right? Like remember we played with the Prime Minister back when he was the Canadian Open. I think it was the Canadian Open, and Jean Chrétien got to play with Tiger.
You're kidding? I don't remember that.
Yeah, I was there. I saw it.
Really?
How do you, the Prime Minister, weasel in on a Pro-Am with Tiger?
It was something.
Something. That bothers me, and that happened 25 years ago.
It was a bit of a scandal because it obviously cost money, and somebody gave him the slot. I I forget that, who was accused of trying to buy political favors by giving him the slot, but
Yeah, of course.
But of course, yeah, no, and he talked about how Tiger was kind of hard on him. Like, John Konecny is not a great golfer, but he's still golfing in his 90s. I think he just had his 90th birthday. But I mean, he like Konecny was hilarious. He was giving it the foot wedge and having fun with the crowd. And of course, Tiger in those days was just straight ahead, not messing around, just kind of rolling his eyes whenever Konecny was cheating openly, right?
Yeah.
Like just cheating like profusely.
Basically, Bill Murray. Tiger's like, thanks.
Yeah.
What's this guy's name again? John Konecny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
That is wild though, because the nature of the Pro-Am is like the top billing guys, like. Generally, it is like a bidding process.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like if Tiger would have been going off for a fortune and he would have got on first and it would have been like, that's the guy. And back then, they would have played 18 holes in the Pro-Am.
Oh, yeah.
Like now they play 9. I did not know that John Konecny weaseled his way into a Pro-Am with Tiger at Glen Abbey, I would assume. Probably at the Abbey.
I think it was at the Abbey. It might have been Royal
Montreal. It could have been.
Might have been Royal Montreal.
Yeah, could have been.
I actually talked to Konecny about it a while ago because we were talking about him congratulating Mike Weir on the 20th anniversary of Weir's Masters win last spring, but Weir ended up ghosting Konecny. It was supposed to call. They forgot to call the Prime Minister back after the Prime Minister called Weir in the excitement around winning the Masters And Weir's agent was like, "Oh crap, we forgot to call the Prime Minister."
No way.
And they left the Prime Minister hanging.
That's tough.
Yeah,
that's tough because they didn't leave the Leafs hanging. Remember, the Leafs were in the playoffs, and Weirzy came up. Was out there in the Leaf jersey, dropping the ceremonial puck, and the place was going nuts.
That might have been the loudest ovation ever given in that arena.
It
was just incredible. It was massive. It was just shaking with absolute joy. It was incredible.
Yeah, it really was. All right, so here's what Doogie has been cooking up. Again, it's generally we do a Jerry's on a day like today, maybe a role play level of concern, but it is Valentine's Day, and we thought let's be as positive as we possibly can and get a little bit creative, although it's going to mix together a lot of things we've done in the past. But basically, we all have a rose, we can all hand it out, and there's going to be certain options, or it's going to be basically in front of all of us to pick whoever we want in these hypothetical situations. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understands where we're going here?
Yeah.
All right, so we got Pascal Siakam back in town tonight, and he is currently an athlete, does not play in Toronto, so technically he could qualify here. But you have a pick of the litter here. Pick one athlete that you would take to leave their current team and play in Toronto. If you could pick one pro athlete today, presumably to play for one of the 5 Toronto pro sports teams, who would that be? Noodles, do you have an answer for us?
I do. I mean, the easy one would be McDavid.
Yes.
But I'm going to go Shohei Ohtani.
Ooh, Shohei. It was that close.
It was that close. Why not? I would like to see what that would look like for him to show up here.
Yeah. You're right. He had a rose in his hand, and he basically told Ross
crumpled
Atkins,
it up and threw it right in our faces. That's what he did.
Yeah, he stepped on it and said, "Go pick that up, Ross."
No, it was the reporter. I can't remember his name.
Oh, John Morosi.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Morosi.
It was
Morosi
right.
had the rose and threw it out the window. That's what he did.
Morosi's mentions on it are just wild right now. He could tweet out an innocuous tweet about the Milwaukee Brewers, and Jays fans are in there like, "Are you sure? You sure about that?"
Exactly.
He'll never get over that.
It's going to be a tough one to live down.
He'll never get over that.
He never will.
Okay, you're going with Shohei Ohtani. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Feschuk, who do you have?
Look, I'm tempted to say McDavid because I think McDavid will play in Toronto one day, and I love how that just grates on Edmontonians. Like they cannot handle. They cannot.
What
handle
makes you
idea.
think that? Like outside of he's from Newmarket and he loves Toronto and all that. What makes you like? Do you think he's 39 years old and he does what Gretzky wanted to do?
Gretzky wanted to come here.
Yeah.
Don't forget, the Leafs just couldn't afford it. It was the old
Steve Stavro.
The friendly grocer could not afford the contract at the time, or claimed to not be able to afford it because he was in some dire financial straits. But anyway, that's a long time ago. But we just had Sam on yesterday, Sam Mitchell, and he proclaimed on this very radio station that he believes Victor Wembanyama has a chance to be the greatest player he's ever seen, the greatest player of all time. So if I had to pick a basketball player, let's just go basketball. I'm going with the 19-year-old kid that is the absolute alien of aliens. And
you going with Wemby? You going with Wemby over Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. You go with Wemby.
Well, just because he's younger. Just because he's younger.
He's younger by like 4 years.
Well,
but I hear you.
He's better. I mean, he's going to be way
he
better than anybody.
He probably is going to be significantly better than everyone else in the NBA. I'm leaning towards, the hokey nature of a local guy coming back. You went with Shohei. He's from Japan. You got Wemby. He's from France. I'll step up. I'll give it 2-pack. I will say SGA.
Okay.
And I'll have the stones to say McDavid. Of course it's McDavid.
Yeah,
how amazing it would be to have McDavid in Toronto in his prime, 6 assists last night against St. Louis in a Leaf jersey. 97's available to him whenever he wants it. I like the way you're leaning, Dave. I hope what I would say is if he ever plays here again, I hope it's not a situation. 38 years old. I just want to play once, 1 year, wrap up my career. I got this. I'm up in Muskoka on off days. If he's going to be here, you want him to continue to have an impact.
Yeah. And look, depends. It just depends on how it works out there. Like if Edmonton finally gets over the hump and actually wins something, which it looks like they're on the right track this year. I mean, who knows with the goaltending? I mean,
they're in the race.
Yeah, they're
sure.
in the race. I mean, maybe he'll just make Edmonton his lifelong home and retire an Oiler. I'm sure the Oilers will do everything they can to keep him.
I'm from Edmonton. I talk to my buddies all the time. I think my buddies are realistic as to, they don't think McDavid will be like Crosby. Like Crosby, I think is a throwback. But I think there are other star players. I think people in Toronto believe that Matthews wants to get stuff done here, and then he might move on at some
Absolutely.
point.
Oh, for
I
sure.
think that's the same belief in Edmonton with McDavid. They want him to be a lifetime person there. They do. Like every organization, every fan base would want their star player to be a lifer there. But you also have to be realistic. I think what these fan bases want is if this guy creates a dynasty, stay for the dynasty. If he gets one, then maybe it's one and done. Like that's, right. I think people are realistic in today's world. Most of my balanced friends believe that, if McDavid wins in Edmonton, all bets are off. Mm-hmm. But, you got to win. Easier said than done. Took Ovi 13 years. Leafs and all these teams are trying to do it. They've been really good in the playoffs. So, I think that's the belief from some of my balanced friends out there is McDavid will move on, but he wants to win there first.
How about the unbalanced friends?
No, they're all. I mean, you're right. You brought it up. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear, especially to Toronto, because it's he's from there, connected there. Leafs fans travel well. You don't want to hear that. They don't want to, because they're already protective of him. They're scared. The minute that the Oilers lose 5 in a row, it's like, McDavid wants out. How many times has that been trending online the last 3 or 4 years? Mm-hmm. The minute that the Oilers hit the ditch, it's like, McDavid hates it there, wants to get out, and McDavid's going to leave. Why would he want to stay? All of that type of stuff. I think he wants to win there first, but again, I'm not Connor McDavid.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's what he's always said. He's always publicly he's there, he's committed to them, he's playing great. They got a great situation. I think that's the plan as well. All right, moving on here. All right, we talk about statues in the city quite often, and there really aren't any. There's Legends Row now that's been created.
A lot of statues there. A lot of them.
I guess technically there are. You're right. They've quickly made up for a lack of statues. In the last decade, they've created that. But if you could pick a statue moment or player beyond, I guess, who's already available in Legends Row for the city of Toronto, what moment or player do you think would be worthy of that on Valentine's Day?
The Kawhi basket.
Game 7 versus Philly, that's your moment?
That's Philly. That's a statue moment, because if that doesn't, what did it bounce 4 times?
4 times.
If on the third bounce it just rolls out, they don't win the championship. They don't, I don't believe, that's curtains right there, right? And you never have this magical run. The span would have been broken up long before. Maybe Masai's not here, because they didn't get it done.
Right.
I think that's a statue moment for me. Yes, they won the championship and all. The cards fell. But that particular moment for me, that's statue worthy.
Oh, no doubt. That is you know what? You go into Terminal 2 at Pearson and they got that photo, this incredible, I don't know how long it is. It's 10 feet high and 15 feet long of a large photo of that moment. And there are a bunch of great photos that were taken by the various newspaper guys in town. And every time I walk by it, I'm like, that is the greatest scene that's ever been shown in Toronto
incredible.
history. Like, I know they didn't win a championship in that moment, but just the scene of that shot with everybody waiting for that ball to drop, it's just an incredible scene.
Well, and furthermore, like there's Sixers players and Embiid's in there.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see the sickness on his face, like the concern on his face. It really is. It's like something you would see in the Louvre or something. It's an incredible
it's art.
shot.
It really is.
It is.
Can I do another one, though?
Yeah, what do you got?
And this is a person, and I could be way off base here, but Tim Leiweke. I don't know why.
Tim Leiweke statue.
Whoa.
I just
like
feel
it.
like this guy had brass, balls or whatever you want to say. Like this guy literally, he called the shots.
Yeah,
like,
he did.
We're parade. We're doing like everything about him. You watch that Beckham special on Netflix. Like he's in there going, we want to make a big splash. Like this guy has guts. And I remember we all were tongue in cheek when he was like, I'm planning the parade route. I'm doing, like this guy he swung big.
He did. And he was gone by the time they won it, I believe.
I agree.
Oh,
but
he
laid the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And, you see he's a trailblazer like throughout the sports world. That Oakview group, like he's got his fingers on everything, and Seattle, that Climate Pledge building, he's got his fingers all like he's an impressive individual. I feel like his influence alone in this city,
it was massive.
Massive
it was.
For years.
It really was.
Oh, it was.
I'll make it a 3-pack. I think it's that. I mean, in modern day, the only comparison would be the bat flip, but they didn't win the World Series. Like you got to complete it. That's the amazing thing about that shot against Philly. Is then they beat Milwaukee in 6, they beat the Warriors in 6, they have the parade, and they're immortalized. That's what started that in large part. All right, you can hand that rose to the Super Bowl winner next year. Who would you pick if you could hand pick next year's Super Bowl winner? Who would it be and why?
Oof. I mean, you're saying who do I want to win the Super Bowl?
Yeah,
Is that
what would be the
is?
most compelling story?
Okay. Well, I mean, I grew up down the road from a little place called Orchard Park, New York.
Yeah.
And, you talk about a cursed fan base that's not only a football fan base, but a hockey fan base that's been waiting for a championship moment. I can't think of a better fan base that's more loyal and more rabid and more long overdue for a parade like they're having today in Kansas City. So, it's a no-brainer. It's Bills Nation.
For you, it's the Buffalo Bills?
Well, there's 4 Super Bowls and no Super Bowl wins. It's
right. And heartbreak in the playoffs against Kansas City.
Plenty of
13 seconds left, wide right, 2.0.
Yeah.
The Bills would be very compelling. I mean, the Packers, I think, again, for me, would be compelling. And I will admit, even as a Packer fan, I will say the Lions would be a team. I'd be sick over that as a main rival in the NFC North. But everything you just said about the Bills applies to the Lions times 10. They didn't have 4 straight Super Bowls.
You're right. Not even close.
They don't even make the playoffs.
Right.
Like they haven't won a playoff game in how long? 30-something years? Let alone 2. They hadn't won 2 playoff games in the same year since like 1957 or something crazy like that. It was in black and white.
True. But the thing is, like, Detroit at least has had championships in other sports. Like the Pistons have won, the Tigers have won in the 80s.
Right.
I mean, the Sabres, obviously, foot in the crease, Brett Hall, and feathers outside of that.
It's sickening.
Right? Been to the final in the 70s, but
Yeah.
it's just not enough success for 2 major league teams.
All right. I'd like to say, now this is crazy because they would have 0 chance. But like a team like the Washington Commanders,
It would be a cool story.
it would just
New
be
owner.
insane. Like just, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I hate the name of their team. Like,
Right.
it's just a weird setup. But I'll say Cincinnati. Like, Joe Burrow, if it's his time to kind of take over. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about this too, because I've seen nothing but for the last 3 days trending online how the NFL is rigged. And there was a story. You guys followed
It's
this
so
at all?
stupid.
Oh, it's so
It's
dumb.
Conspiracy
so
theories,
dumb.
like how there was a first down that was called that wasn't first down, and it was like,
I saw that, but like that was a TV issue. It was a production issue.
Yeah, it was a fonting issue.
Yeah,
That's
it wasn't
what
the NFL. The game, if you were in the building, you knew it was like 2nd and 2 or whatever.
Yeah, 2nd and 7 or whatever it was. But it just, following that, there are crazy people that believe like the NFL is rigged and, Kansas City's going to have a three-peat. For some reason, I do want to see that, but I also want to see new blood. So that's why I'm saying Cincinnati. And
all right. Well, and again, Cincinnati, like that's a city that doesn't have any success either. Like the big red machine, I guess. That was a long time ago. The Reds were competitive. All right, moving on here. Let's get to another couple options here in terms of handing roses out. All right, pitchers and catchers returning today. If you could choose one of these stories, which one would you choose to play out? Alek Manoah returns to ace-like production this year, or Vladdy Guerrero Jr. returns to an MVP contender?
I'd have to go Vladdy. To me, look, it'd be great. It would be a good story if Manoah can pull it out of the ditch and resurrect his career after what happened last year, the debacle that it was. But I think, it might be a little hard to take, too, because Manoah is a lot. And, you don't know what might follow that. But with Vladdy, I mean, I think people in this city, people around this team have been waiting. They've been expecting. They've been hoping that the guy who finished second in MVP voting to Shohei Ohtani a couple of years ago can finish first eventually and be that guy. And they need him to be that guy more than ever in a year where they really didn't do much, right? Like, they've got pitching. They had pitching last year without Manoah. They need Vladdy to be that guy. And the only way they can probably fulfill the potential that this front office claims they have is if he is that guy. So I think that's the more necessary storyline, and that's why I choose to give my rose to Vladdy.
It's more necessary, but it isn't a cooler story or a more fascinating or compelling story. Like we love the comeback story.
True.
It's the coolest thing in pro sports when you see a guy that is being written off completely, deservedly so. That's one of the most disastrous seasons in Blue Jay history last year.
Oh, yeah.
And that is not an overstatement. That is a lukewarm, factual comment. And the idea of him just picking up where he left off 2 years ago. We're talking a 3 ERA, 33 starts. Guy's a stud. They make the playoffs, and it's like that guy's getting the ball game won. That would be incredible. Like, it truly would be an incredible story. How he might handle it, I don't know. Would it benefit the Jays more to have Vladdy get back to MVP contention? 100%. He plays every day. You're talking 600 at-bats. You're talking a stud in the middle of your lineup. They need it. Hitting was an issue last year. Pitching was not. Everything you said there was correct, Dave. In terms of wins and losses, I'd say Vladdy. But in terms of, like, heartstrings and telling a story, a Manoah comeback would be one for the ages.
I think it is for me. You're right. The more logical one is Vladdy, but the bigger one, which could be a 30 for 30. If Manoah ends up coming back to some form of like great status, this guy was pitching in like, what was it called?
Complex
again?
League.
The Florida Complex League.
He was basically pitching in a parking lot in Florida.
Right.
Exactly.
To 18-year-old hitters and getting knocked out, and getting hit.
Yeah.
There were reports that he got lit up his first,
He did. He factually weren't even reporting. You're right. He's at a Winn-Dixie somewhere down there. He gave up like 11 runs and like 3 home runs.
Yeah. It was
nuts.
So if he came all the way back and was in an all-star game or was an all-star or just, commanded the mound again, that's a turn of events. You go from a top of the hill to the bottom of the bottom. Like, he has to look up at rock bottom, and then he goes back. Like, you would love to be in a candid moment. What were you thinking the night after your first, you got lit up for 11 hits
right.
to 18-year-olds in a parking lot in Florida?
No. He's not going to answer it today, but you're right. If he gets back to the top, he'll happily talk about that.
He will talk about it and go, man, I was in a dark place. There were times I wanted to quit, all of that. This is a 30 for 30 if he can get back. So that's I'm pulling for that one.
Yes. Okay. Let's curry some favor out of one fan base in the country and have 2 others not so happy with us. You can hand the rose out, or I guess in this case, the Stanley Cup. It's rigged, just like the Super Bowl, right? Here we go. Who is it? I guess Justin Trudeau in this case is rigging the Stanley Cup playoffs. You can give the Stanley Cup to the Oilers, the Jets, or the Canucks. Who are you picking and why?
Whew.
You're an Edmonton guy.
Who you got, Noodles?
Let's say the Oilers.
No, but I get. For what we talked about McDavid moving on, I think that would be because Draisaitl has to make a decision too. So that might cause a lot of stir in the league if they won this year because no guarantee Draisaitl signs an extension. They might break up the band at that point. Never know. They might want to go for it again, whatever. I went off the board and saying Winnipeg.
The Peg.
And I'll tell you why. Because Vancouver and Edmonton can be mad at me for this, but this last summer, including ourselves on this show, we talked about Winnipeg getting blown up because Scheifele was getting traded, Hellebuck wanted out, all of these things, What are they going to do? PLD doesn't want to play there, all of a sudden they're a really good team. Rick Bowness is yelling at the team at the end of the year last year. Nothing had fallen into place, and then all of a sudden it was just like Hellebuck resigns, Scheifele resigns, and they hit the ground running. Velarde settles in. Iafallo looks good. Young players push through. To me, there's been always this doubt of it's Winnipeg, man.
Yep.
Last year, if they won a cup, they weren't filling the building this year.
Right, that was a big story, man. They weren't selling tickets.
I would love to see them have success where it's like Kevin Cheveldayoff. How many times have you been trending on Twitter? It's like Chevy doesn't trade for players. Chevy doesn't do this. He's had to draft and develop. Winnipeg's a tough market to get free agents there, and he's just methodically been chipping away and chipping away. I'd like to see them get rewarded.
All right. I like it. I like the way you're thinking. You got Winnipeg. Dave, who do you have?
Yeah, look, I got a lot of family out in the Winnipeg way, so it would mean a lot to those people. They haven't won anything since the Avco Cup in the WHA, right? That was the last time they had a championship parade. That was a long time ago. So, yeah, that'd be nice. But look, I'm going to stump for your hometown, Noodles, because I got to say, as somebody without a dog in the fight, without a horse in the race, I just want to see great players do great things, and I want to see McDavid rewarded for what he has done, which is essentially dominate the league from the minute he stepped into it. I hope he's got enough talent around him to do that, especially in the blue paint. But I think there would be a great storyline, and I think there'd be nobody I would feel happier for than the best player on the planet.
Yeah, I mean all of these are compelling options, and obviously, we don't have the power to literally hand out the Stanley Cup, but McDavid completing it, getting it done, winning, being the best player of his generation, everything you said about Winnipeg, very true. I will say Vancouver because it will be the culmination of an incredible story as well. Everything you said about Winnipeg, right. Noodles, 100% accurate, and I was leading the charge. I was like, these guys aren't good enough. Scheifele's going to go. Hellebuck may not want to be there. And they re-signed. They got better. They're playing great. It's the smallest market in the league. The idea of Bettman having to be in Winnipeg for 2 weeks would be great. There's a lot of different compelling angles of national media in Winnipeg and Portage in Maine and all that. McDavid, incredible. But Vancouver's been in the league a long time. They've never won either. And they embarrassed themselves as a fan base in 94 and in 2011. But if they got over the top, they could redeem themselves in terms of the partying, in terms of the possible parade. And it's a great hockey market. Rick Tockett's just done an unbelievable job. It's been really cool. Yeah. Jimmy Rutherford's done a great job. I think the idea that they've kind of come out of nowhere, it's been a great story from start to finish. They've been waiting for a cup a long, long time. Edmonton's had their cups.
Yeah,
I'll go with Vancouver. All right, there it is, the Matchmaker game. OverDrive Matchmaker brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. From tip-offs to tie bites and puck drops to pizza, BP's elite lineup of apps, wings, and ice-cold beer is always dialed in. For game time, hustle into your local BP tonight. We might sneak in one more. We might have a couple more that we can sprinkle in as the day goes on. Darren Dreger coming up in about 15 minutes. Keegan Matheson from Dunedin, pitchers and catchers reporting today. We'll tee up spring training with Keegan. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. right, so the O-Dog's not feeling well today, but I've sent him a note, said we got to make picks for Riviera, right? The Genesis Invitational, and it's a 70-man tournament, and there is a cut. It's a limited cut. But Tiger Woods is there. Tiger's doing his thing. You know, he's got his new gear on. It looks great. Him and TaylorMade doing their thing.
Yeah.
And he looks good off the tee. You know, we'll see what his short game's like. We'll find out. But the O-Dog and I will go back and forth. We'll get some picks in the next hour. And Darren Dreger's coming up. Leafs back in action tomorrow night. We assume that, you know, Tavares will be back and Marner will be back. But that was an impressive win last night. And we'll get into it more with Dregs in the next hour and including get into the Morgan Riley situation where he served one of his 5 games. He is going to appeal, but I can't imagine the appeal process. I don't know why why can't Gary Zoom with him right now and give him an answer within the hour?
Wow.
Like, why does it have to take so long to go through the appeal process?
Did you see did you see Gary's answer to the appeal that David Perron filed on his 6-game suspension for cross-checking? It was like a book. I mean, this is like he turns it into a huge legal case.
Right. It's so unnecessary. Are you going to change it or not?
It's crazy.
Yeah. Like, what do you think, Gary? Like, I get there's legalese because the PA's involved,
right?
And the CBA. You know, you can't be flippant about it. I understand.
And you're talking about money. You're talking about you're costing a guy money. So
yeah.
You're going to take away money. You got to justify it.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's, I guess, what's going to happen here. But the chances of Riley playing between now and, you know, the 5th game are probably slim. But maybe retroactively you get some money back. All right, so more on the Leafs win last night, more on McDavid, more on Phil Kessel trying to get back in the NHL out in Vancouver. We'll see what Dregs can tell us about that. Final hour coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.